Capes and controllers.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Capes and Controllers. I'm Michael Himes, and I'm joined by Jake Helmen.
Hey.
And Adam Pannel.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Finish,
It's a podcast.
Nice to see you. You gonna finish your greeting there? Well, we're a podcast where we're gonna discuss 3 topics. So each week we'll discuss a topic about video games, something from the world of movies, and the third topic is pretty much anything else.
Yep.
So the first topic we're going to talk about is the Battle Royale genre. And obviously the first thing that comes to mind for me is that Apex Legends released recently. And people have been kind of jumping over to it. I'm not going to call it the Fortnite killer yet, but a lot of people have been enjoying it, and I've been seeing a lot of friends play it. I have not played it myself, but I have seen, I have been present while other people have been playing it. I mean, it looks pretty cool so far. Obviously it's a bit more, I guess I can say realistic, even though they use a bunch of future tech. Than Fortnite is. Like, it's not cell shaded. But it looks pretty interesting. Though I have heard from some of the more casual Fortnite crowd that it is like confusing to them.
Yeah. A little too in depth. Okay.
Just because like it's a class based battle royale game. So there are different like characters that you can pick that have different like attributes, which is different from Fortnite because everybody's the same and you just find different weapons.
So it's like a cross between Overwatch and Fortnite.
Yeah, I guess. I hate...
If Fortnite is the metric.
I always hate doing those, like, combined.
Yeah,
because when Destiny was coming out, everybody's like, yeah, it's like Halo and Borderlands and Skyrim. And it was like, It was 30 games in there, and then it came out, and people were like, this isn't like any of those things. But I guess, like, if we have to go with that metric, I would say it's like Fortnite, Overwatch with a little bit of Halo.
Okay, well, but what does it mean for the genre? Like, what do you think it means for that?
I think it's interesting that another free-to-play could even step up to the plate at this point, just because of how huge Fortnite got. I mean, we're seeing Fortnite become completely cross-platform, including mobile, which Adam can tell us all about, since he loves to play Fortnite on his phone.
Oh, we're calling him out already.
Oh, yeah. I'm going right for the jugular. Adam plays Fortnite mobile and is proud of it.
I have lit my pitchfork. I'm ready. Everyone rise with me. Adam plays mobile Fortnite.
It's awesome. I love it. I don't know why you guys have so much hate for it.
Because it's Fortnite mobile. Why would you ever want to play a shooter with touchscreen controls?
It's surprisingly intuitive.
It's not.
Surprisingly. Okay, for me, surprisingly intuitive would be like you are able to move with like minimal latency.
Not thinking about it.
Yeah.
And you can't tell me that game runs smoothly. Even
no, it does. It does. I
really
don't have any hiccups.
I don't know about that, Adam.
But then again, I do have an advanced iPhone.
Oh, an advanced iPhone.
I do have kind of.
I've got a quantum computer.
Oh, you got the Fortnite edition? Is that?
Gosh dang it!
iPhone XF. Yeah, that's the great one.
But I mean, I don't have any problems with it. I don't really like the graphics on it are pretty good, but then again, they are cell shaded, so it's kind of hard to, do something wrong. Yeah.
Make out what's a person, what's a tree.
Anything could be anything.
So it's cell shaded, so the graphics are, I think, a little bit timeless, and they're pretty consistent from platform to platform. Mobile wise, I really prefer it on there. You can actually
you prefer it on mobile.
I prefer it on mobile. I used to play it on Switch. I used to play it on Switch. I used to play it on. I played it on PS4 for a little bit of time, but now I
mobile
can't.
Is your favorite?
Mobile is my favorite.
How is that? You went down the line.
I did,
and then you said like the simplest and like most like out there option is your favorite and is the best one.
Right.
That's so weird.
And
so does it have to do? I will say that I was really impressed when that game came out because it was literally the entire game shoved onto an iPhone app for free, and I was really impressed with that. And I think that was going back a little bit to the topic. I thought that was impressive that they are advancing this this genre to now a mobile casual platform that literally anyone can play. Anyone with an iPhone can play. Before you needed a okay computer, or you needed a PS4 or a Switch. Now you can have your phone, something that everyone has. So
What? Don't you guys have phones?
I will give it credit for that.
I think that's why I prefer it now, because when I started on the PS4, I had a bunch of free time, you know. It was a break, so I could just sit down, I could play Fortnite on there. And then I went back to college, and I had the Switch for a temporary period of time, and that was really cool too. You know, I could bring it along in car rides, I could play it on vacation, and it was really mobile and portable. But I guess it's the accessibility that I like about the mobile platform. The fact that I could literally be anywhere and I could hop on, and I love playing with my brother. Me and my brother play duos all the time in Fortnite, and that's kind of like been our tradition that we would get on during the weekends and we would both play together. So the fact that I don't have any mobile or any gaming platforms with me here at college, and I could just play on my gaming platform, which is my phone.
Right.
That's just so cool, and I still get to have those moments with them.
Yeah.
And the interface, you can actually change it. They have a feature on there where you can change the buttons on the phone, so that way you can work with it a lot easier.
Okay, so you can map different parts of your touch screen to different parts of your touch screen.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, like,
Wow.
Incredible.
Flipped a couple pixels around for me.
but you'd be surprised about all of the stuff that you can fit on that tiny screen, like HUD-wise, and how
Are we
much
talking
easier...
about the iPhone now?
Yes. I'm still talking about the iPhone.
No,
Reviewing the
I'm
iPhone?
saying like you'd be surprised how many pixels you can fit on there. The battery life is the best yet. Anyway, Fortnite and Battle Royale.
Battle Royale
games.
is general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think part of the reason why Fortnite's so big is because it's so accessible. It's accessible to a very like casual crowd. It's free to download. It's on every platform you can imagine. And that's why it draws in such a big crowd.
Yeah, and it's definitely opened this new thing where the free to play thing. I mean, we can talk about it later, but like Tetris is free. It's a whole thing because it needed to be free because there's 99 people, and the more of the people that play this, the better. So you want those people, and also you're just getting a larger player base, which means hopefully means more money in the long run.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, and it's also not one of those freemium games. So
Right.
it's not like you start it and you can. There are 1,000 memes about buying V-Bucks, but you can. It's kind of like Overwatch. The only thing that you will get out of like loot boxes or paying actual money for are cosmetics.
Bought my fair share. Guilty as charged.
And this game and this genre is able to withstand that too.
Yes, and because
being boring.
there was a while where like people that made like freemium games for phones would say that this was, it's unsustainable to do it any other way.
Yep.
And as much as I don't hail Fortnite as the greatest game of all time, or it definitely like kind of opened the door with like it's a big like honking example of like no, we can do it this way.
We can do it this way, and it works.
Completely free to play, and you only have to pay for cosmetics if you want them.
Yeah, and they ended up making more money than PUBG, which was paid.
Mm-hmm. That's because PUBG isn't maintained and the servers are still garbage today.
Yes, true.
Now, have you guys played Blackout?
And Black Ops 4?
That was the Call of Duty one, correct? Yeah.
Black Ops 4.
Black Ops
yeah.
4.
I haven't yet.
Yeah, so I played the Battle Royale in Black Ops 4, right. And I did not like it.
Okay, why?
A lot of people were saying it was good, but I couldn't get into it.
It just wasn't
I
Fortnite
think,
Mobile.
Yeah, it was a Fortnite Mobile. Well, it's a little bit more gritty.
Yeah.
Did you play PUBG?
I didn't play PUBG.
Okay.
No, why would I play an inferior Fortnite, you know?
see my roommate swears by PUBG. He still plays it to this day.
Really?
He swears by it. He just likes he doesn't like how cartoony Fortnite is.
That's fair.
Well, that is fair.
I think
I get like people have different tastes in that area. I played PUBG for a while, and I've played Fortnite for a while. And And I wouldn't say like I like either of them like as a concept better because they're essentially the same game. But
Yeah.
Fortnite is more polished, which makes it in my mind an overall better game, just because it's more finished than PUBG is. But like people are always going to be like when Wind Waker came out, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker.
Where are you going with this?
Just like people will be mad when things aren't realistic.
Oh yeah. Right. Okay. Gotcha.
And I think even in the battle royale genre, that will cause a divide, even though the games aren't really affected by it.
That's a good point. Just the look of them.
Yeah, because you're like and it's not this simple, but like which skin do you want on your battle royale game?
Yeah, and we could talk about for a minute there. We thought that battle royale, like that was it because of Battlefield coming out, and like Battlefield was kind of the last big game to be like, hey, we can do this, and it did not do well. And I actually don't know much about the battle royale feature. I know that people didn't really love it, but
well, and like it's not like battle royale is new. Like
right.
There are
but this craze. People realized it was money making.
Yeah, well, and it's the most recent like people the pure battle royale, I guess, because it's like you start with nothing and you pick up your own weapons and you find your own things. And earlier games like game modes like King of the Hill and Halo were pretty much similar. Like you have to maintain your position and be the best there ever was. Or like if you played hardcore mode in earlier Call of Duty games. I believe it was like if you die, you're out for the round and you try to be the last one standing.
Yep.
It's essentially Battle Royale.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a very good point.
You could even call Smash a Battle Royale game because if you play with a lot of people, because you just toss them in and it's last man standing.
Yeah.
But this new, it's interesting to see the resurgence of this as such like a big new genre of game. Battle Royale has become the new hot tag, like when people used to make every game a zombie game.
Yeah,
which is very interesting.
That's a good point. And I think it's even more interesting too that the whole Fortnite thing, it started as a side thing for the actual game, which I don't even know if they made. Did they actually create the real?
Yes, it has been released.
Okay.
I think. The single player is out.
I know the game is out technically, but
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if they just let it go completely and just went completely for
I think they finished it.
Okay.
I'm not sure if they have actually.
Really?
Yep, I own the single player, but
Did it not feel finished?
I don't. Last time I checked, they were still working on it. I don't know. Maybe they finished it in the time span I've been.
Maybe no one paid attention to it. Is my point.
Yeah. I mean, no, definitely not as big as the Battle Royale game for sure.
And it's funny that you said that it feels more finished because that was an argument forever about this game was never finished. And
Yes.
I remember it was up for awards, and that was a whole fight it was a beta, and does it count as a game?
I'm still salty about that aspect of it because, people that like Fortnite, good job, like good for you, and like people that don't like it, sure. No, people who like Fortnite, not people who make Fortnite.
I thought you said people who made it.
No, but like it's cool that it won an award, but it should have been like double disqualified from that award. A game can't win Game of the Year that isn't out, and a game can't win the Game of the Year that came out the previous year. And both of those things were true for Fortnite at that time.
Right.
So it was very strange to me that it won over like the crazy games that came out that year.
Yeah. No, it's
Michael's a cynic. I for one thought it deserved it.
And in regards to cultural impact, sure, it probably deserved it,
Yeah.
because it was probably the biggest game of this year. It definitely like reached a wider audience than the story-driven single-player games that have been released. I would argue that those are better games, but as far as like the impact that the game had on the video game world, it probably deserved that award.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, the key question moving forward is whether Apex, Blackout, any of these Battle Royale games, will they be able to defeat Fortnite? Will they be able to unseat the king moving forward? Because I for one, I don't think that they will. I think Fortnite, it does two things really well. It appeals to everyone. It appeals to older audiences and younger as well. And I think part of the reason for that is it's cartoony graphics, but also it's more competitive, multifaceted gameplay with the building and the shooting as well. And it's free,
Yep.
which is everyone's.
That's a big one.
Yeah, that is a huge one. That's
Who else can release their
why
game
they
for
have such a
free?
huge player base.
They've probably made more than a lot of paid games, even though it's
think
free.
to go off of that, I think you're right. I think that what people did is, hey, we can do that. We can just copy it. And so that's what Call of Duty did, and that was big for a minute. I think it kind of died down if
I think
judging
so
from
too.
what I can tell.
Yeah.
Battlefield came out. No one cared about that. So I think that now companies are now thinking of, well, let's take this genre and let's mold it into other genres.
Yeah.
Akin to Tetris 99 that was just announced.
The greatest battle royale.
Greatest
game.
battle royale ever. No, I mean, I heard that was also pretty just kind of boring and like just a simple thing.
I mean,
but
yeah, it's Tetris.
it's a big deal because it's saying, let's take this idea that was popular and let's mold it into other things, and instead of just copying it straight up.
I also
I think that's interesting.
I do think that's interesting, but I worry that it's I don't necessarily worry because it's not my favorite genre ever created, but it seems like a sign of like the death of the significance of that genre. So that happened with zombie stuff too, right? You start out with games are about zombies, and that's cool because zombies are cool, and it has some part to it. And then towards the end of that genre's life, you start putting crazy spins on it as the catch when that tag, the zombie tag, the battle royale tag, is no longer the draw. That you have to take an original spin on it to make it something that people want to play. And I could see that happening with the battle royale thing now that the market is saturated with games like that.
That's a good point. Yeah, I like that.
I can see where you're coming from.
I think Fortnite will hold a crowd forever.
Yeah.
Kind of like how Minecraft did. Minecraft was huge, accessible to a lot of different people, easy to play, and Fortnite is still that.
Yep.
When they pull the servers, I think we'll all be dead. So
Yeah, honestly.
If they have any sense. Something that is interesting too that relevant to what Michael and I were talking about. I wonder if part of this craze came from the hit film, The Hunger Games.
The Hunger Games, yeah, Battle
Now,
Royale.
Because
find your own weapons.
This is now we're going back to the beginnings here. Because like you said, yes, there's been Battle Royale-ish modes, but this whole thing of fighting to the death till there's one person, Hunger Games kind of sparked that, and then from there, I believe, is the first time I saw it was in Minecraft when they made the mods Minecraft Hunger Games. And that was also a big thing.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And like that almost re-sparked Minecraft
I would
in
agree.
that time. And so I think if I had to guess, PUBG, PlayerUnknown, probably got a similar idea from that.
Yeah.
And incorporating that mod into, was it DayZ? What was Dota 2? What was PUBG
Was PUBG a clone of something?
It was. But anyways, that's probably where he got the idea for the mod originally, and eventually the game. But yeah, I think that's interesting. That maybe it was the Hunger Games that started this whole thing.
It's also cool to live in a time where you can hear the rumblings of a genre starting. So like when the zombie thing happened, like I was too young to comprehend that like there were little ticks happening in the world that would make them more and more popular until there was a huge, cultural explosion of everything is zombies now.
Yeah.
But like as far as this goes, we've been able to see it every
felt
step
it.
of the way, because the Hunger Games, like people like it, and it's this, a huge franchise. That was a battle royale. They didn't call it that, but it was clearly like, that's why Minecraft Hunger Games was Minecraft Hunger Games. But it was, it's interesting to see now, like we are in the explosion part of that now. And I wonder like where it will go, and we see with Apex, like they're trying to put a twist on it, trying to change, some integral aspect of it to make it more interesting again. And it's cool to like being around for the birth to death of a craze like this.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you felt the tremors about to. So.
Rumblings, tremors. I love the
Rumblings.
earthquake vocabulary
Yes,
we're
yes.
using here.
Tectonic shift.
We're really feeling the tectonic shift of the industry. Really rocked our world, don't you think? But I think moving forward, I don't think anyone's really going to beat Fortnite. I think all of these are really niche battle royale style games that are appealing to different markets moving forward. I think that they're capitalizing on the success of battle royale, but I think now there's more than just Fortnite to satisfy the battle royale craze.
Yeah.
Which I think it's good. I think it's good for the industry. It brings a lot more competition, and I actually haven't played Apex either. But it's made by Respawn,
Who makes Titanfall?
who made Titanfall, and they also brought over some people who originally made Call of Duty as well. So I'm sure moving forward, Fortnite will definitely be on its toes. I know right now they're doing a special event where they're offering a free battle pass if you complete all these challenges. So it's like they're giving away a bunch of
Isn't
stuff
that like
for free.
14 challenges though? Like it's
It's-
pretty. You have to play it for a while to go.
You have to play. I've been playing every now and then for the past week, and I haven't had any trouble completing them. They're pretty easy
okay.
if you dedicate yourself to completing them every match.
Gotta be dedicated.
You got to be
Fortnite
dedicated,
mobile.
man.
It's actually charge that phone, boys.
Like I just play like 1 or 2 games a day. I accomplish them easily. So
Okay.
yeah, it takes me like a couple tries, but if you're interested in Fortnite, probably should hop on. Yeah, complete them. Get
Speaking
that free
of
battle
big,
pass.
fancy nerd phones.
Yeah. In a in a completely organic segue. We're gonna move on to our movie topic, which is the hacker trope that you see a lot of, and it's kind of like a combination, a bundle of the English please and cop procedurals or anything honestly, where a quote unquote smart character will say something that can range from completely normal words that someone should understand to like absolute technobabble, and the viewer input character will say English please to try to get them to say it in plain English. And I'm a computer science major, so I program.
AKA he's a nerd.
Yeah, I'm a
He's
big
one of
old
those.
nerd.
One of those.
I'm one of those boys. I sit at a computer all day long, and I look to see where I forgot my semicolons. And it's been very interesting, like, as I learn more about my major, to see, like, more and more in movies and shows, like, how funny it is, how little they know about, like, what goes into this type of work. Because I find that, like, if it's either a cop show, even like a heist movie, the hacker character or the nerdy one can never be the normal person on the team. So like they can't just be someone like you have a demolitionist and you have a hacker. No, we have the demolitionist, we have the safe cracker, and then way over there's the hacker, and he does his own thing.
Yep.
He is either like lording over the whole thing where he is basically controlling the entire operation, or he's the one that everybody's like, get it done, nerd boy. And then he goes over and sadly pulls out his second keyboard and starts typing rapidly without, my favorite thing. So these hackers, they try to get into these databases so they can say, I'm in. But they never hit space or enter. So it's like, but no, you should be using those most. You're sending code to this thing. You gotta be going down lines. You gotta be at least typing more than one like string. But The trope is to just type rapidly, and it's just the keys pretty much in the center of the keyboard because the actors are lazy and just want to do this. If you can hear that in the mic. Scritch, scritch, scritch. But it just gets funnier and funnier as I see this type of stuff. And I wonder, like, if it's harmful to like how people see people in my career. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm into nerd shit and it's nerdy as heck. And there are plenty of people who are the archetype that you see, you know, the people who think they're too smart for everybody else. And they're kind of like they use their extended vocabulary to make it seem like they're smarter than everyone in the room. Sometimes. Okay. Most of the time, no. Most of the time you just know useless words that aren't used in regular conversation. And for some reason, the fact that you know these words that normal people don't speak makes you think that you're better than other people. Which I don't. I'm a pretty casual computer nerd. I'm a tongue-in-cheek nerd because I know I'm pathetic. But I wonder if it's harmful. Like, if people see something like that and they're discouraged from like wanting to do something like that. Because they think you either have to be this born prodigy, you know, god of computers, or you will be like the outcast or the recluse, you know?
Right. So like, why the one that especially intrigues me is the one that like the trope of like the hacker nerd that is, yes, he like sits alone all the time, but he's not necessarily made fun of. He's almost just revered and afraid. Or like you're supposed to be afraid of him.
Yes.
It's like, oh, that's it. Yeah. I mean, you brought it up a little
throw
bit.
a flash drive. He puts his USB into his computer on the first try. Don't mess with that one.
Yeah, but it's almost like call in James, and then James spins around in the corner of his chair.
He'll spin around 2 or 3 times.
It's 2 or 3 times. He goes, I suppose I could do it. And he kind of lays back and pushes his glasses up. And that's the trope that always interests me because I don't know anyone like that. Is that common? Is that kind of a dude common where they're like overly cool about it to the point where it's just awkward?
There are very there are people who try to be that cool, but it very rarely. These are the people that you see like they're always sitting like really like back and they're leaning back in their chairs and they're looking at their computer and they always have Linux on their laptop. It's never if you're running Windows or Mac, it's not okay. But this person will always have Linux because it's open source and they feel smarter for using it. And you know that they're trying to be that person. You know, you show up and you have to call in Samuel, and he picks up the phone. He picks up the phone and he's looking away, but also typing at his computer. And there are like thousands of lines of code showing up, and he's not even looking at what he's doing anymore. And he's like, yeah, I've got time. It's such like, and that one is so weird to me,
right?
Because they try to almost put the like retired specialist thing on them, you know, like you see, like, I guess I got to come out of retirement to finish this one last job. But the hacker does that for every job. So it's like they can't be bothered to be a part of the organization or like the group that you are with. Right. But if you need to summon them, they'll show up and save the day for you. And I feel that too many people have that mentality, but without the skill to back it up, you know?
Yeah. And like you said, I think it is, I don't think it's harmful to those who want to do it, but I do think it is harmful to the general public who don't understand what this job is that you do, and really what it entails. And like a lot of the creativity that entails, I feel like, which we were discussing the other day, they always make them out to be these cold, awkward, math-oriented nerds. And while that is a lot of it, I do think that like you said, there's so much design that goes into it. There's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot more skill beyond what you see than just slamming your hands on a keyboard or remembering what to push.
Well, and they act like the general conception is that like, you know, the people who hack into these mainframes, they're just doing it because they're so smart and they want something to channel their genius into, you know. They did it because they thought they could. But people are passionate in my field, you know. People write programs, and it's not just like, it's not that you're passionate about seeing weird words appear on a screen and and lines of code running up and down. it's what you're working towards that's the important part of it. And I'm sure there are some like pure theory like computer scientists that are just real jazzed about syntax and code. But like what most of us I think are working towards is like the final product, the change that we can see. And I feel like that kind of passion is never really shown.
Yeah. But counterpoint, what if people are writing these roles and making everyone confused at what you guys doing so that you get more jobs?
That's
I don't know how to do this.
that's a
Bring
good
in one of
point.
them hacker nerds.
Please
and
keep doing what you're doing. I am in the fastest growing profession in the world, and if nobody wants to join it and I can take all the high paying jobs, I will take it. You know, please continue to fall on your swords,
It's
movie
a
producers.
secret Illuminati conspiracy.
We have to decrease the number of computer scientists in the world, so the ones we have are in more demand. Oh, no, they're working us to get to the point. It's the ideal world in the movies where I can eventually be one day. I'm the only hacker in the world. I'm the only person who knows how to write code. So
that's
every time
right.
something needs to get done, like Terminators start attacking, and then someone calls me, and I'm like, and then I spin around. What is it,
Do a
Mr.
line.
President? I've got a lot to do today.
Right, exactly. I'm busy.
The Prime Minister is on the phone as well. Please hold. I've got to
Pope.
finish this script real quick.
The Pope is on the phone.
So I feel like we can't talk about this without mentioning Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh, yes.
So what is your feelings on that?
Revenge of the Nerds, if you look back at it, the nerds do way worse things to the jocks than what was done to them. And illegal things. And by today's standards, horrible, horrible things. And it's really interesting, that movie, because it's very much that movie hits the nail on the head. Like it's very on the nose about these are the 80s computer nerds that don't know how to talk to people. And it's like they're all this group effort and they're in computer club and I can't say vintage computers because at the time they were just computers. But they have these giant computers in their room and there's paper everywhere in their room for some mysterious reason. And that is very like, I guess that movie is very harmful to the stereotype in a way because the nerds do get their catharsis, you know, they win. But it's not like they used their superior nerd skills to do these things. You know, some of the things like they used their superior minds to get it up over the frat boys. But it's not like they do it in a way that gives them the moral victory. Nor do they like become really more well-rounded people because of it. And I think it's very strange because it's almost written from the perspective of like, and this is going to sound really dumb, but it's the revenge of the nerds for like all of the tropes they've been put into, you know? Like these characters who are literally trope characters come in and they win the day instead of being the character that gets shoved into a locker, you know? But I don't think that movie is particularly helpful in any way either. Because it's done in like a underhanded way, I guess.
Right, in a dirty way too.
Yeah, they definitely don't have the moral victory there. And it's one of those like they were so busy thinking about what they could do that they didn't think about what they should do. Because they're like, it's not like they're the bigger person. The whole thing is like if you're actually a smarter person than them, then you'll know that none of this BS actually matters, and you would rise above that situation. But these are the nerds that get their feelings hurt and they pull their suspenders up and they're ready to get into a tussle. I just, even though like it shows the nerds in a positive like mischievous light in that movie, I don't think it's helpful to like to the conception to the perception of nerds as a whole in society.
And I think some interesting point too that I want to talk about, like the evolution of this stereotype.
is like video games. I feel like at first they were kind of the video game people,
Yes.
but as it's grown, it's almost become separated. Do you
Yes.
did you? This is, I think, the 90s, so I understand if you don't remember it. But the Burger King Kids Club. Do you guys remember that?
I think.
It's this
I
cringy group of
can't
individuals.
say.
Look it up here. It's this
Burger King
cringy group
Kids
of
Club?
individuals that were like horrible, stereotypes of themselves. But I do remember that there was, here it is. There was IQ, which was
Of course, his name's IQ.
IQ is the boy, and here he is. He. But then there was
Of course.
also Kidvid, which was like the gamer dude, but he was also like a skater gamer guy. And I always thought that
Gotcha.
was interesting that they didn't marry those two together. The
Interesting.
cool guy was the dude that played video games, and this was in the 90s too.
I think.
Huh.
I almost think the reason for that is because of the rise of the console.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it became so you didn't have to like. It wasn't hard to play games anymore. Like,
Right.
You're trying to
point.
play your games on your Macintosh, and you have to have all these like boot strings that you
Yeah.
have to enter in just to like play the game.
To open a game, yeah.
And when plug and play consoles became a thing, then it was like, okay, it's easy now.
You didn't have to go to the arcade and deal with those people down
And
there.
it was normalized, so people, oh, my kid does that, they're normal.
Exactly.
They're not the kid that everybody else in the group is named like Jake and Sam, and then his name is like Nostradamus. Like he can be part of the group
IQ.
now.
Yeah. Goddamn IQ. I also, this is not relevant, but the kid in the wheelchair is named Wheels, and it just,
What? That's so offensive.
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Wheels. And of course, that's his nickname that he like is like cool with. It's like
Wheels.
it's okay because we made the character okay with it. It's not derogative.
the Jeff Dunham effect here. They didn't say it. Anyway.
So the next topic we're gonna talk about, this is our anything topic, and it's like what defines this decade in terms of media. So that could mean literally anything that you could consume that is considered entertainment. What out of that pool in like the 2010s do you think has defined this decade?
Considering we're at the end.
Yes, yeah, we're coming right up on the end there. We're about to head into the roaring 20s again.
That's weird. I don't know.
I
about
know.
that. Whoa.
Oh, jeez.
So yeah, this is anything. And I think, considering our name, I feel like we got to mention it. I really do think that this has been like superhero time.
Oh, absolutely.
I think we got to start off with that.
Mm-hmm.
That
Well,
has defined this
I want to
generation.
say 2008 was the first Iron Man movie, so I won't talk about that because that's not in the 2010s. But I want to say 2012 was the first Avengers movie.
Yep.
And that was this huge event. Everybody went, and superhero movies started coming out like more often. Like it was you would see at least one a year type of thing, where it used to be once every couple of years you could hope for a good superhero movie to come out.
Right.
And so the whole birth of the Marvel Cinematic Universe was happening, where we connected characters from like huge characters from solo movies of their own to come collaborate and be in something bigger. And this was around the time when everybody came together and started talking about something we like to call superhero fatigue, which was the term used when talking about how people were eventually going to get tired of these movies and stop seeing them, and this fad would pass.
Right.
Um,
That was about like 2016. I remember people talking about that 2015.
Mhm.
Yeah. So about
I
halfway
even
through.
heard like a year and a half after the Avengers came out.
Oh yeah.
this was-
I believe that. Yeah.
Because people actually, like they can't put out this many movies about superheroes and expect people to still go watch them. But now half of the movies you see in movie theaters are superhero movies.
Yeah.
And the train is still going. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is bigger than ever. There's the whole Infinity War was like a cultural event. It was
Insane.
it stopped being a movie at some point and became something that everyone needed to see, or you
have to
weren't
go.
part of pop culture anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible. That was incredible to see comic books, the comic books I grew up as a kid, reading, to see those kinds of events translated to the cinematic side of things. That was
And
incredible.
beyond that, I mean, just to people in general, to a culture. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was translated to everyone knows who these people are now.
Hey, but I liked it first. I liked it. I
I liked
call
it first.
dibs.
Listen.
Okay.
I'm upset.
Amazing Fantasy 15, $30,000. I own it. No.
I'm upset about all of this that's been happening. You know, the superheroes becoming cool, Pokemon coming
Yeah, they're not
cool.
supposed
I'm
to be
sure we'll
cool.
talk about that later. You know, I like this first. I don't. It's cool now, but why couldn't it have been cool sooner? You know.
I feel like that's what some Trekkies think about the J.J. Abrams movies too.
Oh man.
Yeah. Well, Star Trek or Star Wars is a big one too, though.
Oh yeah, Star Wars is back in a big way.
Back in a big way, yeah, and it really in a positive light, which forever had been nothing but negative because of the prequels. So
Well, and I would argue that people do hate on these new movies a lot too, but
that's true.
as far as a broader audience goes, they've been generally positively received.
So Star Wars, though, would we consider that a defining media of the decade?
I would say the new trilogy.
The new trilogy.
Yeah, I would say so. Not as a whole, but I think that especially that first movie, 7, was an event.
Yeah, well, because The Force Awakens, you know, however good or bad that movie is, they knew exactly where to grab your nostalgia strings and pull you in. As soon as like the first note of the intro went off in theaters, literally the whole crowd started cheering, and I was like, I am in for something right now,
insane.
because it was almost like I can't even I could not replicate the experience of seeing that movie live, like in a crowd of people, because of the excitement. The whole room was charged with this nervous energy. Like, is Star Wars really back? Even though we're sitting in a Star Wars movie, you know?
Yeah.
We've been fucked over before.
Yeah. And the Star Wars crawl starts to happen. And it's almost like even before the movie started, there was a wave of relief and everyone knew it was going to be all right. You know? It was so weird.
Yeah.
Right. And Force Awakens was full of callbacks that everyone was like,
Oh, for sure.
I watched Star Wars. I'm in the know.
Hint, hint,
Small
wink,
film.
wink.
Exactly.
Every time we show a lightsaber, we'll play a slowed down version of the Star Wars theme. We'll show you.
But yeah, I mean, even just seeing and it brought together people like us who have grown up with those movies, but didn't necessarily grow up with those movies. You know, like I went with my dad, who saw the first ones in theaters.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was cool to see him watch those movies too, because he really did.
Yes.
He was re-experiencing those movies again from when he was a child.
It was very interesting to see how many parents were excited about it.
Right.
Yeah. Just because things are always, they seem so constrained to our generation. Like a lot of superhero movies, the old crowd's like, okay, yeah, that's your thing. But Star Wars, when Star Wars is back, something's different, you know? Everyone comes out of the woodwork to come see it. And, people, I think those movies are pretty regarded in a general light, but I feel like they definitely, something changed when The Force Awakens came out and people, and Star Wars returned to the forefront. And I feel like it definitely shifted, I don't know what it shifted, but it shifted some sort of culture for this decade.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think a lot of the media that we grew up with as kids, to see it all come back and into the mainstream culture, I think it's just been really cool.
Well, and I mean, it's classic. It's a classic Hollywood move in the first place to try to bank on nostalgia. You reboot something that's old and famous, and then people go and see it. And that's what when they made the Ghostbusters reboot with the SNL ladies, it was like, here's Ghostbusters. It's back in a big way. Ghostbusters.
See, we did it.
theme.
Yeah. Goodbye.
We'll have Fall Out Boy sing the Ghostbusters theme for some reason. Hey, I love Fall Out Boy. I'm just saying, why did they
was
sing
a
the
weird cover.
Ghostbusters
That was
theme for the
not a
Ghostbusters
wonderful
reboot? But I think it's interesting to see you'll see reboots of. For a while, I was seeing reboots of movies that I had never seen the original movie of, and then Ghostbusters, and now we're seeing more Star Wars, and we're getting to a point where they're targeted at me, and I'm not. It's not necessarily it's right now. It's probably targeted at people in their early 30s.
What, like Star Wars, or just saying?
No,
these movies
the
that
nostalgia grabber movies.
Okay.
That's around that time are the titles that we're starting to see come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to be a part of the audience that's targeted towards now, because I'd see, the King Kong movie with Jack Black in it, that my dad took me to see when I was a little kid. And he took me to it because it was this King Kong movie. You know, King Kong's out now. Let's go see it. And for him, like, he grew up with King Kong, you know, King Kong and Godzilla. Like, those movies came out while he was as a kid and watching them. Right. And it's interesting to see now, like understanding him from that sort of like, let's go see this.
Connect to it.
This is the thing that I loved, and it's back now
through that media. Yeah, and nostalgia grabbers have been a thing, but I do think that they are. I guess they are just more relevant. But I also feel like they're getting around to the point where these are people making these movies are the ones that actually cared about the medium to begin with.
Yes.
You know, and I think that's the big idea here. Is, you know, Star Wars with the prequels, you know, they were just right after. They didn't understand necessarily what made them so big. But yeah, now that they do, and they're more higher quality, at least you could at least say that.
Did you see the video that came out? It was John Boyega's reaction to seeing himself in the Force Awakens trailer. The feeling like someone who knows how huge Star Wars is, who grew up in reverence of Star Wars, seeing themselves in a Star Wars trailer must be a feeling like no other.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And it's really interesting to see like how a brand like that, how a set of movies like that can have such a huge hold over people. And I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is definitely going to be one of those. It's right now it's got a hold on everybody.
I think it's part of the reason that I think that it has a hold on everyone nowadays. I think it's been a huge culture shift since we were kids. I think that nowadays we're looking at a culture that's more geared towards superheroes. We love these big name celebrities, like seeing people do these incredible things and being able to relate to them, just like ordinary people doing incredible things. I feel like that's how our culture is geared nowadays, is to those narratives where the ordinary person does something fantastic.
Well, I mean, you could argue that for any superhero movie, but I think it's interesting to see that now people are into that more than ever, because you'd think it would be a pretty universal thing.
Right. Well, I think a big thing is that we have the technology to do it too.
Yes, that's true.
That just wasn't possible before.
Yeah,
something like the Avengers would never happen in the 80s.
That's very true.
Or could never happen. I mean.
Yeah, because things on this scale just couldn't be made, you know.
No.
And you don't see something that the Infinity Gauntlet does could never be portrayed in anything earlier than this decade, I think, in a way that really grabs you.
That's a good point.
You know, you see, especially like with the way how good CG is now. You know, you see Thanos reach up and he closes the gauntlet and you see a nearby moon break into pieces and he throws it down, and you would not get the sense of that scale because you would either see these big like blocky PS1 rocks flying at you. And it would definitely would have been a 3D movie, by the way. And they would fly through at the screen, you know, because they would come at you.
Yeah.
Because we were still working through that gimmick at the time.
Jeez. Yeah, we got through that, didn't we?
Yeah.
What was that era? Would you say? The 3D movie explode again.
I want to say, I'll say 2008, 2012. Okay. That sounds about right.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It was the beginning of the 10s, but it was not anywhere.
No,
it was also the end of the zeros, the odds.
Well, because like that's a time when movies like the weird Alice in Wonderland reboot also had a gimmicky 3D thing where butterflies came out the screen at you. It's like, why is this in this movie? Like, you don't really need 3D for this, do you?
No, you really don't. But okay, to get off of that though, another I think interesting trope that has been, or not trope, I guess phenomenon, let's say, for the 2010s, has been an upswing in quality horror movies.
Yes.
I think
really
that
I have loved recent horror movies.
that horror movies have never been taken seriously. They have never really, because they were meant to scare. That was their thing. They weren't there for the story. They were like a Mario game. They're like, don't worry about the story. You just have fun. Right?
Yeah.
But now I see this comeback, I suppose, not even a comeback because it was a thing. this revolution of an actual quality story and a thoughtful story with a horror movie, and that married with like what we were talking about with effects, finally now coming down to being so cheap that you can do these films. And I think a big one that kicked it off was Get Out. I think there was plenty before that and critically acclaimed, but Get Out was the one that really critics took a notice to, and it was a smart change on. It was a three things all at once. It was a critically acclaimed. It was a smart horror movie that did things differently, and it was like it had a trying to think of like a commentary on society at the same time, which is also something that's been another trend, which we can talk about later if we wanted to. But this is like commentary movies, right? And it hit all three of those. It was a triple hitter, and I think that's kicked off this whole thing too of Get Out, and just overall, I mean, there's been so many good horror movies that have come out recently.
I think it
was another one.
That's what I was thinking of. It was a huge thing. Get Out came and everyone went and saw Get Out.
Oh yeah.
It came and everyone wanted to go see it.
It's crazy that everyone went to go see a remake of It.
Right.
But,
I don't know what that.
I mean, part of it was that Finn Wolfhard was in it, and everyone loves Stranger Things. Stranger Things is another big.
Stranger Things. That's a great one. Yes.
Man,
yes.
talk about nostalgia.
It's like That was also true.
That synth soundtrack gets you popping.
You got the horror and you got Finn.
Yeah.
Children.
But it was really good.
Yeah. No, solid.
It was really good.
It was good.
It's so hard to talk about those.
Yes.
I do think I like the recent, like, horror movies are allowed to say more things now. So, like, it got to a point where it was just like, how much can we scare the audience? And presumably you want to try that in a horror movie. You want to unsettle or scare your audience. But now we do it in a way where we're doing it to guide you towards the message that we're trying to send. Movies like The Babadook, which I think that was a really good movie. It was very slow and very dreary for a lot of it. And then when the horror elements came in, it felt like kind of out of place until you like realized that the whole meta narrative of it was about depression.
Sure. Yeah.
And it was really interesting to see, and like that one I feel like was one of the more like ham-fisted, like, you know, it was very clear that it was about depression towards the end. Because it was like, so you're just
didn't really hide it.
You're gonna live with the creepy weird creature just regularly now, and even though it tried to kill you or something.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I do think it's interesting that we see movies drifting, and not like other movies have said things. You know, there are movies that are very like, I'm about something.
Yeah.
Yes. But you don't see that a lot in horror movies.
Right.
But we're seeing it a lot more now, which I'm really happy about.
Yeah, no, totally. I think that they're doing smart things with it too. They're bending things, like we were talking about earlier. The Vavitch,
The Vavitch.
The Witch is a very smart horror movie, and neither of you have seen that, but it is completely. You'd think it actually like is I don't even know what time period it's from, but they all talk like that time period, Old English, and it's very cool. But it's very psychological. It's not jump scary. I mean, it is also.
What's it about?
It's about a Vavitch.
It's actually a pretty basic plot. I really don't know the time period. I really should. But it's about basically a family in that time period that lives kind of alone on a farm, essentially, back in that time. You know, and basically just being haunted by these kind of spirits. But it's not typical, ooh, there's a ghost in the corner and this ugly witch shows up. It's like, it's all in their minds, and they kind of, some of them get possessed, and like I said, it's all very psychological and well written, and not just like, boo, there's a ghost, right? Or boo, there's a witch. And so yeah, I think that's a trend too, is that we're seeing smart horror movies.
Oh, yeah.
I also like that we're turning like the kind of tropes on their heads too. The name is seriously escaping me right now, but the John Krasinski movie about being quiet, A Quiet Place.
A Quiet Place.
Yes. That was like very like, oh, okay, here's the catch, you know.
Right.
And I'm glad we're seeing
they did
that.
it well.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a one-off thing.
Yeah, it's not
it
as
through.
like, but also this, you know?
exactly.
It was like interwoven into the whole movie. We knew exactly why they had to be quiet. we knew why it was a quiet place. But they did smart things with the sound. Like there was a safe place that was a waterfall because it would drown out all the noises, all the like medium sound noises that they were making. And it was a place where they could actually speak, and it was like a transformative experience for one of the kids because they'd never been able to like speak in a normal volume before. And I think it's interesting that they showed the more human side of the horror rather than just the whole thing being about like, oh no, I stepped on a creaky floorboard and now all the big bad monsters are coming.
Yeah. And another cultural event that we were talking about with these movies, Bird Box.
Yep. Yeah, everyone's
Horror
been
movie
about
that
Bird Box recently.
Everyone's about Bird Box.
I've never seen Bird Box.
You're fine, honestly. I don't think it was deserved, but it was a
No.
thing, and it was a horror movie that got popular.
I've heard
everyone
a
watched
lot about it. I've heard a lot of people talk about Bird Box, but
People-
I had no idea what they
people
were.
Grab people
think
about
that movie is a lot smarter than it is
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
because it's a very regular horror movie. It's clearly like it has its own like twist on the whole genre thing, but it almost like fails to do the same thing that A Quiet Place did, where it takes it and integrates it into the whole movie and changes like the human part of it.
Yeah.
Because it's just a survival movie.
Right.
It's a survival movie, but nobody opened the windows. You know, like, and it had some interesting aspects to it, like, oh, we gotta wear blindfolds. Okay, you know, there's a good graphic for a poster because now we can have an iconic image where Sandra Bullock has blindfolds on and she's leading
You know
children.
What that means. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's a very like big silhouette. But I just think it.
And it did some interesting things.
Yes.
Too. I think there were some things
I don't
where was
hate
like,
it.
oh, you did this is new to the genre. Yeah, this is a cool twist. I'm escaping some of them, but ultimately, yeah, it was just
It had good parts. I like that
right
there
away.
were that crazy people weren't affected by it. So like
Yeah.
the people that escaped the mental institution, they became essentially cultists to it. So they thought it was beautiful and they wanted everybody else to see it. And I thought that was an interesting take. I really wish they would have went more into that because they just kind of mentioned it to have a secondary enemy in the movie.
Yep.
But like it's in such like a throwaway way that they did it. They had like gold and then they just chucked it out the window.
Right.
I was like, I'd watch a whole movie about that. Like, why did these people see it differently?
Where did
What
they
did they
come from?
see? You know,
Right. Yeah, did the whole hiding it thing too. What
which
is
I
it?
thought I think is a good thing to do. I mean, Cloverfield did that, and that was pretty cool. You didn't see the monster for most of the movie. You saw glimpses of the monster,
Yep.
which was cool. The scariest thing in the world is mystery.
That's right.
Your imagination is always going to be worse than what the monster actually looks like. The less I see the monster in a horror movie, the better I end up thinking it was. Just because there's that element of it could be anywhere. What does it look like? How can it hurt me?
Right.
You know?
That works for everything except Godzilla.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I
And
want to
they
see more
somehow decided
Godzilla.
to do that in the recent. I know this isn't about our topic at all, but not the one that's upcoming, but the most recent Godzilla movie that had Bryan Cranston in it had 15 minutes of Godzilla over the entire movie. Godzilla was on screen for 15 minutes. Those were easily the best parts of the movie.
Oh yeah.
The fight choreography between him and the other monsters was really cool and like really big spectacle and awesome.
Interesting. Yeah, that's bad.
And then the rest of the movie was about regular people and Godzilla's around. And it's like, okay.
No one goes to see a movie to see regular people. Like I could just watch my neighbor Joe next door and that would be equally as interesting. We came for the monster.
Kong Skull Island kind of fell into that trap too. I think it didn't fall into it as hard as Godzilla did, but it was interesting that they put Tom Hiddleston as an action hero as well. But that movie was it was like, yeah, King Kong, and then it's like, but we gotta it's like I already know what King Kong looks like. I know exactly what King Kong can do. He's a giant gorilla. But you don't need to preserve the mystery by not showing like his abilities or like him on screen.
Yep.
And the fights with King Kong, they were cool. Like, just give me more of that. And I think honestly, that's like that's a product of a lot of movies. But like in this last decade, we've seen a lot of movies like kind of get that the imagination is much scarier than what you see.
Right. Again, being psychological.
And psychological horror movies are my favorite.
I think most people would agree. We're at 1 hour.
Oh, well, we've only got 2 more topics to go through. Let's just make each episode longer and longer. Oh, wait, we have only one.
One more.
We'll make each episode longer and longer.
Right. Intro the next one.
Eventually, it'll be 10 hours long. So our last week, we watched Spirited Away. We told you we were going to watch it, and we did. And yeah, because we're not liars, and we watched it. And I'm actually serious. Please don't think I did watch it. When we were talking about movies to watch, I shared with Jake that I had a weird experience with this movie. That when I was young, like in elementary school, I stayed up like too late one night, and it was on Cartoon Network. And it really creeped me out. Like, it didn't scare me into like running out of the room or anything, but it unsettled me like to my core. And for the longest time after watching that movie, I thought it was a dream. Like, I was convinced that I had not actually watched it, because I was like, there's no way something that weird would be made. Like, that has to be like my nightmares bleeding into my dreams,
And Michael and I, we've had the same thing happen to us.
Too, because I told Jake about this, and then I go over to talk to Adam about it, and I ask him if he's ever seen Spirited Away, and he says yeah, and I was like, oh, how recently did you see it? And he was like, well, when I was in elementary school, I stayed up too late one night, and it was on, and I literally was like, no way. And Jake looks over and he's like, are you serious? I heard you. Like, and I guess we had like a very, very similar experience with this movie, which is really weird.
So did both of you see it from the beginning to the end, or was it just like you hopped in and saw 20 minutes?
Well,
of it,
I only remember.
this?
I don't think I saw the very beginning. I think I came in about like the 20-minute mark or something.
Okay.
So it was already into weird territory.
Yes.
And I like also like you have elementary school kid gaps in your memory. So I remembered what I felt out of the movie, and I remembered No Face.
Right.
I remember No Face's name, but I just remember the weird shadow thing with the kabuki mask on its face. And it was. Watching it again, I completely understand why it freaked me out as well. Because there are parts of it that are freaky.
Yeah.
No Face is still scary.
I think we should go around like, did we enjoy the film? Like, basis what we liked or did not like. Just
why don't you go first, Mr. Cinephile himself?
All right, fine. I'll start with it. I did enjoy this movie. We picked this movie because it was it's kind of revered as a critically acclaimed. It's the second biggest box office of an anime film ever, second to Your Name, and yeah, it's just really, really. And I was impressed with it. I really liked it, and especially being not an anime guy, I don't dislike them. I just don't watch very many of them. I was very surprised at how Western this movie felt. Am I alone in that? I felt like
the core of it felt very Western.
Yes, obviously the monsters and the culture of it is very, very Japanese.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know, the style of storytelling and the characters and not, I mean, the main characters and just some of the themes and stuff that dealt with, I thought were very Western and American. I was pretty impressed with that. I was almost disappointed because I was like, damn it. But I really thought it was well done. I think it was an interesting story. It was just well thought out. It's kind of reminds me of almost like Star Wars or something like that, just because it's this you can see that the person who made this, just their mind, this was their brain, and it just everything's coming out at once, and you're like, how did you think of this? Like, this is just weird, but it's imaginative and it's almost lovable at some parts as well.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that's why I can understand why people enjoy this movie. And like Harry Potter, that's a good example too, where it's like, where did you come up with this? You know, but yet it's cool and I like it, but it's weird. And so I think it does a really good job of kind of balancing that of it's weird and it's freaky, but it's also lovable. And I thought there were some interesting lessons to learn there too. And
yes.
It was deeper than I anticipated. So that's kind of my basis on it. I took too long, but go ahead, Adam. What did you think?
What struck me about the movie, and I think for me, I love environmental storytelling and I love culture. from, stuff like, this has no correlation to Spirited Away whatsoever, but stuff like
Isn't this about Spirited Away?
stuff.
Have you seen the movie, Adam?
Yes, I have. But I mean, interesting movies that take you to an interesting place and just immerse you in their culture that they drew inspiration from. I mean, those movies are incredible. And when I watched Spirited Away, it sucked me in, it drew me into its world, but I still think it is creepy as all get out. I watched it on and off. I had to watch it for 30 minutes here and there. I would watch it for 30 minutes. I'd be like, ooh, that really freaked me out. And then I'd stop it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I'd come back. I don't know. It must be like
repressed memories.
Yeah,
come back.
repressed.
Yeah.
Fortnite Mobile buzzed, and you're like, hold on.
Hold on, gotta get that dub real quick.
But the world of it was just magnificent, and I guess all of these spirits that show up in the film, the people who made this, they drew from Shintoism.
Mm-hmm.
And Shinto, the first part Shin means divine being, and then To means way. So altogether that means way of the spirit. So Shintoism is a religion over in Japan.
Okay.
Started around 1000 BCE.
You did your
got
freaking
this.
research,
I
was like,
love
okay,
culture.
learn about
I love
Shintoism
culture.
now.
I love world building, and just seeing all of this brought into this movie. It's just incredible, and it's actually still worshipped today.
Yeah.
5 million people still celebrate Shintoism.
So what parts of this are Shinto?
all of the
Everything's
spirits.
This,
The entire
yeah.
thing?
everything is a spirit. Like everything has a soul,
Yeah.
and most of those things are spirits that can interact with each other.
Mhm. That's kind of the basis of Shintoism right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So like visually, is it also from Shintoism?
Visually, well, I think the basis is that every object, whether living or dead, has a spirit inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, I mean, we don't know what a spirit would actually look like. I don't know whether artistically.
I mean, they used like very like figures from Japanese mythology. You know,
Right.
I hate to go with a stereotype first, but the dragon, you know,
Yeah.
Haku is a river spirit dragon. And that's very much comes through in his
Clearly
design.
say, yeah.
And Yanaba is that her name? It's tough to remember hers because her sister has a similar name.
Yes.
Yeah. But she is like
Unibaba or something. Yeah, whatever.
yeah, she's based off of like an oni, which are these like children stealing creatures. But they do like I think in the visual style take reference from Japanese mythology. And I don't claim to know a lot about Japanese mythology, but I recognize some figures.
Right.
It's just it's really cool to see. I was very impressed with just how much they included from that specific part of Japanese culture. And Shintoism, I also found you don't actually have to. It's not like a religion where you dedicate your entire life to it. You can also be Shinto. You can be a I'm not even sure how you say it. A Shintoic, a Shintite, a
Shintoist.
a Shintoist.
A
You can be
person who believes in Shintoism.
you can be a Shintoist and a Christian or a Buddhist.
Well, that's interesting. That
Okay.
And
at least from their end, it's
This is
compatible
a-
with
Yeah,
other religions.
yeah.
Layer of kind of thinking.
Maybe-
on top of other things.
yeah, you can
A layer
like
of respect.
stack it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can multi-class.
Get out of here.
Jeez.
So just the entire thing from building perspective, that's what impressed me. What about you, Michael?
I had a cathartic experience with this. I am glad that I didn't watch it again until now, because I don't think I would have appreciated it as much.
Okay. Yeah.
This movie left me with like emotions that I don't get from other movies, and it's not that like it necessarily did anything amazingly better. It just went for something different.
That's true.
I was seeing like all the rules were thrown out the window. The majority of the movie is made up of like monstrous looking creatures. Humanoid things are in the minority.
Right.
And it really felt like, I don't know, and it could be because I saw this as a little kid first too, but like, I felt as like I was seeing it through Sen's eyes, right? Like I was lost in this unfamiliar world where nothing I knew was still there. And there are parts where like something, like she just keeps getting stuff thrown at her over and over and over. And she like just breaks down and cries. And it's like, that's absolutely what a kid of that age would do.
Yeah.
Because these people are like, do this. It's completely normal. Go here, do that. And it's almost, I think it almost has parallels with like a child going into the adult world.
Yeah.
So like growing up and being thrust into the unknown.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
And it like a lot of that movie just felt like bittersweet, and like I was vaguely sad at the end of it that the adventure was over and that we were returning to reality.
Right, yeah.
And that was cool because I was so intimidated at like to that world when she first went into it.
Weirded out by it.
Yes.
Right.
No Face is still so freaking scary. When it got bigger and it swallowed the frog guy.
Oh my God.
And then started talking with his voice, and then he was like crouched up on the thing.
God. I think it was even.
He kept getting
creepier when he did
fatter
that
and
voice.
fatter. No, I thought he was creepier when he just went, yeah. Yeah. No Face was still creepy. And I think the most iconic thing from when I was a kid was I vividly remembered her sitting next to it on the train.
Yep.
And I remember as a little kid thinking, because I think like I zoned out for part of it, and I was like, why are you next to that thing? Like, is it not hurting you? What's going on? And I thought it was weird that like it got such a happy ending, and it was such like a throwaway line on how it became kind of good again, because she was like, I think being in the bathhouse makes it crazy, and then she was just right, and then everything was okay when she left.
Yeah. Okay. If we have to pull out one thing that I disliked, it was the getting into the world and the getting out of the world. I felt were cheap.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like, hey, we're
Yeah.
driving. Hey, look, there's a portal. Let's walk through it.
Yeah. And her parents were just like, food.
And then that's a thing too. Why? There was nothing in the movie that said that they were like loved food or that they were like
So,
gluttonous at all.
I can almost defend that.
Okay.
Because we're seeing a world that is through a child's eyes. So if she thinks her parents are hungry is very like caricaturized, and everything is big and everything is exactly what it is.
Sure.
So like her parents start eating when she's not hungry, and they're like really hungry, so they're just eating stuff real quick.
Yeah.
And she sees like them as these, they're essentially pigs, right? They're just going right at it. And I can see like how rather than going for like a realistic take there, they almost like went for like, this is what a kid would see. Like this is what you would get.
I mean, I can see that. But then to base the whole movie around that too, though.
I agree, yeah.
But yeah, that is fair.
I enjoyed it very, very thoroughly overall. I can't completely still describe the experience I had with it because I went through it and it made me feel a lot of things that are hard to describe. I felt like childhood and growing up, and those aren't emotions.
You feel it.
Yeah, I felt them, and it was a very strange and interesting experience. And I think that's why it's so beloved, is because it hits you places that like other movies don't even know how to touch on. Which I thought was really cool. But overall, I really enjoyed it, and it definitely like I had a cathartic moment from childhood, for sure.
Yeah, and very weird too that it wasn't the style of the movie was also completely not orthodox. Like there wasn't really a bad guy in this movie necessarily. I mean, I guess Unibaba was. But that's sort of. And there was also times where she
was kind
her
of the
out.
good guy. Yeah.
Yeah, she also turned and kind of became good at the end. And
That's
you see this weird change of like trusting people. I think that's a theme in this movie. Is like
I forgot to mention that too.
yeah. At first, I'm forgetting his name. The guy that helps her out throughout the film, Haku. Thank you. There's a moment where he turns on her for a minute. You think that he led her into she thinks that, oh my God, I was led into this crazy thing when he's in Unibaba, and he stops talking to her, and he's like, oh my God, like.
Well, and you get
Unibaba
that
was-
like feeling because
like, oh my God, she was tricked.
Yeah.
And that happens multiple times. So at the movie, where like he's bad, he's good, he's
Yeah.
bad. No, he's still bad. No, wait, he's good now. And it's like this weird flip, and it's cool. And I think it's, again, about trusting people.
And I almost think that sort of neutrality, and I don't think I know anything about Japanese culture or mythology,
No,
but I think
I don't either.
it's a very, like, the neutrality of every character in that movie is a very Eastern thing. So, like, we very much value in the West, like, there being a defined good and evil, a black and white. But I think every single character in that movie was shades of gray. The only character we could be sure that was good was Sen, which was really cool. Like, every character, I thought, oh, this guy's the jerk.
gonna be the
And
bad
then
guy.
there'd be a sweet moment. And I was like, wait.
Wait a minute.
And so you got
that.
through it thinking, like, you almost felt like you knew the characters. I don't know if that makes sense, but, like, you don't categorize them into, like, bad guy, good guy. You're like, this is this character, and this is what they mean to
person,
the story.
Right?
Yeah.
Even though they're not even humans, but they're people.
Like when the Forge Master, like, gave her the tickets, and he was very kind to her throughout the film, even though he started out as
Forge
this
Master's great.
very gruff. He was probably my
I
favorite
think he
character.
might. Yes, I think he's my favorite character.
I just love
he was so
I love the way
cool.
he moves too, like his long spindly arm.
Yeah, it should be creepy, but it was cool. I
Yeah.
don't know why it was cool, and the big stash.
Oh, and the I smacked the table. Sounds.
What do you want to say, Michael?
The Lynn was voiced by Meg from Hercules.
Yes, I was gonna. Bring
Yeah.
that up.
And I
gonna
was
say-
like, hey.
I was just about to bring that up. That the voice acting I thought was really good.
Yep.
The English dub. I was like, damn, this is English dub, and it sounds good.
Yeah.
And yeah, that voice, she was especially good. I thought.
No
Yeah, she was very good.
chance. No way.
I was waiting for that. Song. Susan Egan is her name, by the way, the
Yeah.
actress. Yeah, I was like, she's really good. And I was like, and she sounds really familiar. Oh, that's who this is, Meg. So, yeah, I thought she was great.
Overall, I really enjoyed it.
Lack of music, which I thought there'd be more music.
There
than
was not as much music, and I
I
almost
was
didn't notice the
expecting
music
more.
because it fit the scene so well that it was in. Like, it almost felt like that's the
Yeah,
natural
blended
music
it
that
in.
would be there.
They blended it in.
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
Because it didn't feel like pay attention to this music and the action is building and
Yeah, like, this is a moment. It's all
yeah,
like,
the movie just happened and it was like, here's the music to go along with it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
This is what should be happening. The music didn't try to tell you what you were feeling either, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, it's a really interesting film. Weird.
I did
You
come
said
out of
you
it
don't
thinking
want to watch it again. Or,
I
why?
do
Why
not
you
think
say
I
that?
need to watch it again. So I don't know if it makes sense, but like I had my like growing up experience with it. So I watched it and I was like, that feels like childhood and growing up and bittersweet ending and we're in the real world now and my childhood memories and fantastic journeys are behind me, And I came out of it and it felt very like final and complete. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
that
that
movie,
happened. Goodbye.
yeah. And I'm like, I can close this chapter now,
That's fair.
And it's the fact that I don't want to watch it again doesn't mean that I didn't like it because I really enjoyed the movie.
No, I definitely felt
It's
like
just
that.
not something that I need to watch again. I think it's going to stick with me for a long time too. Which it's weird to have an experience with that with a show that we're just like, we're going to watch this next week. But I feel like especially because I watched it as a little kid and it was such like a weird, surreal, like, did I even watch it experience?
like, completed.
That, yeah, it kind of like, yeah, that part of me it's
All
finished. I did
done.
it.
Don't
This
look
was
into the past, Michael.
2011.
That sounds right.
I thought it was beautifully like drawn and everything too.
Yes.
Yep.
It was very pretty.
Well,
You could
Studio
tell
Ghibli, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It has that old-fashioned like care. Like every frame has movement going on, and everything is alive. And
Yes.
uh,
And the backgrounds, not the
Yes.
foregrounds, but the backgrounds are all hand painted. They're gorgeous.
and there was so much happening.
Gorgeous.
Like the world was so vibrant, and there were
so
so
alive,
many
yeah.
spirits, and everything was just,
I'm kind of curious how long it took them to make this film.
I would say, a very long time.
yeah.
I'm always impressed with animators because I have a friend of mine who's an animation major, and it takes her so long just to animate just a couple of seconds.
Adam just ratted us out.
Yeah, I did. I watched a little YouTube of a video of the teams while they were making it too, and they were all hand drawing it, and you see the director. Help me, what's his name? I should know this.
Miyazaki?
Miyazaki, sure. Okay, Miyazaki, being like, we have to get these scenes done, like due dates soon, and like they're yelling at him and everything. And I don't know, it's just crazy to see these hand drawn. That's just looks so good, so good.
That movie was like, I'm happy that it was still a surreal experience and that it wasn't all like it wasn't just a normal movie
It
that
was
my
that makes sense.
like a normal animated movie
It
that
still
my
was
brain
weird.
conjured. Yeah. I'm glad that it was weird, but like, I don't know. Like, I know I keep coming back to this, but like, it was really like like that string is from here to here, and now we're good.
No love interest, thank God.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
That her and like,
Haku was a brotherly
was gonna
love.
be
They just love each other
a
as
thing.
friends and family.
Especially at the end when they like hold hands for a minute. And I'm like,
Yeah.
don't do it.
No.
I thought they were gonna kiss, and they didn't.
It's like, this
I'm
girl is like
thank
7.
God.
You can't be
Thank
doing
God.
that.
Exactly. It's like this little girl. Come on, please don't add this in there. Yeah. I
Yeah.
have to say it too. They were really good sound effects. I'm sorry.
Oh
Yeah.
my
Really well
goodness.
done. I was like, especially
Can't
for an
go a
animated
single
movie, especially
episode.
an animated movie. No offense, but like I was like, wow.
Yep.
Anyways, that's all I'm gonna
We'd
say
be
about
remiss
that.
not to
I'm
mention the
sorry.
sound effects for this movie.
I tried to avoid it, but like really, this film kept like I heard things. I was like, whoa, that was a great sound. No, whatever.
Whatever. You guys are jerks. I'm gonna go to my room and put on my giant headphones. I'm
Just listen to sound effects for
gonna
an
watch
hour.
Christopher Nolan
I did watch it
movies
with
for
Johnny
5
Depp.
hours.
That's probably what helped it. Revert back to Christopher.
But yeah, overall, I felt good about that movie.
Yep.
Next week, I know we kept flipping back and forth on what we wanted to watch next week.
Yeah.
It was either Get Out or The Village. And I don't know which one we landed on because we kept flipping. And then you talked about Get Out in this episode, so I wondered
did.
if you were like, it's going to be Get Out. And I just completely missed that cue. And now I'm like
No, I really
ruining
didn't
your
decide.
foreshadowing.
I really didn't decide, but I
Alright.
think Get Out, great. Oh my gosh, Get Out. Neither of you seen it yet?
Oh, I know the spoilers for it.
But have you seen it?
Well, I watched the first part. I fell
Okay.
asleep during
I'd like.
no.
I'm gonna
most of the
be.
part.
I'm gonna be real with you
Oh,
guys
here
right
we're
now.
calling him out. Here we go.
Adam is the worst person as far as spoilers go on this planet.
Yep.
Literally every time I mention something to him that's cool, he will look up spoilers for it. We started. I introduced Adam to My Hero Academia, and we started watching it, and we were about 2 episodes in, and then we broke away to watch it again another time.
Sure.
And Adam comes back knowing the plot for the entire first season because he looked everything up, and he spoils everything for himself. Jake has not seen The Village, and I tried to. I asked Adam if he had seen it, and he right in front of Jake, he says, "Oh, is that the one where it's revealed that?" And I was like, "No, you can't. You don't describe a movie by saying what its twist or big reveal is."
I can't help it.
All right.
Do you read the last page of a book?
I do.
No.
I figured. I have to
I don't know what it is. I mean, is it because I'm a journalism major and I have to know everything as soon as it comes out? Is it because I just love spoiling things for myself and I don't like
Probably it.
I don't like surprises.
I don't like well I love surprises,
No,
you
you
know. I've
don't.
always wanted a surprise party as long as I know when and where it is.
As long
Because
as I know.
I want to surprise the people who are throwing the surprise party at me, you know?
You like looking surprised. You don't like
Yeah.
being surprised.
Oh, really? There's a surprise party? Gasp.
All right, I'm gonna cast my lot. Get Out is the
Get Out
movie
is the film.
we're gonna watch this next week, and we're gonna
Hell
come
yes.
back and we're gonna have opinions on it. Probably.
That's right. Oscars
I've
this
heard
weekend,
pretty
so we
much only good things about it, so I'm excited to watch it.
Get Out. Sorry, that was...
Wow. Adam, is that a spoiler for the movie? Does he get out?
That's a bad
I'm
pun.
worried that the main character
I
gets
can't
out.
tell you actually if he gets out. I'm sorry to say.
Is that a spoiler? Is it?
Title is a spoiler.
We're just playing mind tricks. He actually does get out.
Oh,
but-
Actually, it begins with him getting out. You see,
Spiritually, he
don't
gets
spoil
out.
me.
he gets in.
Ah.
Bum. This movie won Best Original Screenplay last year.
Oh yeah.
Let's keep that in mind. Yeah. Again, going back to the first topic, this is a huge deal.
So
Horror movies never win this.
Does that mean we have to watch Spider-Man 2, the only Marvel movie to ever win an Oscar?
Until Black
we'll
Panther
get there.
wins.
Yeah.
Film of the year.
Film of the year. Greatest everything. PS2 graphics, train fight scene. Best effects.
Fight scene was cool.
Yeah,
but
it
it
was.
looked really bad in CG. And the rhinos were pretty bad, too.
You take that back.
The rhino, you know the
monster.
rhinos,
The rhinos
look
were
bad.
bad.
You
I think
Spider-Man
the rhino might have
2
been bad on
fan.
purpose. Because they're like, we promise these aren't real rhinos.
Oh, gotcha.
Like,
we had to
we'll
we had
prove it
to
to you.
keep PETA at the side. Well, anyway, that has nothing to do with us watching Get Out next week. But this has been Capes and Controllers yet again. We talked about some stuff. This episode is more loosey-goosey than the others have been, but we're having
again,
fun.
Longer, just as long as the last one. How did we do that? I don't know.
No.
Let's try to be better next week, maybe.
Will we?
You know we won't, though.
We probably won't.
Yeah.
Will we break
Keep
the
your
record
timestamp
next
for
week?
here for when we say we're going to be shorter. Here, I'll give you a soundbite.
Here's the soundbite.
Next week is going to be way shorter. And
Yeah, there
then
you have
play
it.
that back
Put
to
it on
yourself
the
a couple
soundboard. We'll get a
times.
soundboard of it.
Send it to me in an email, but I'm not going to give you my email.
What's your email? It's trash@thedumpster.com.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been episode 3 of Capes and Controllers. See you later, guys.
Peace.